So let me share my screen again. And this time I'll just continue with the today's agenda. And at the end, we'll stop for any questions. So in between, if you have any questions, you can ask. But since you prefer to be on the mute, let's be on the mute and hear out for this today's agenda. So based on your request, I mean, I have arranged for this HTML class. Now, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Uh, it's a very core of the front end programming or front end development. Now, why it is the core? To give you to start, I mean, before we go delve into the technical things or go deeper, to give you a common analogy, let's say if you are building a house, what are the things required? What all you do? You first you start with uh, creating your walls, your floor, your roof. You give a structure to your house. You start building the pillars, the things what we call the skeleton, which gives the structure to the house. So that is something what the HTML is. Now, after building your wall, roof, and your house is ready to
Sir. Okay, sir.
okay. So once your house is ready with this structure, what you do some painting, you paint your outer wall, you paint your inner wall, you do the flooring, you set the carpet, or you do the you put the tiles, you do the lightings, you do the gardening. There are so many things which you do to do the beautification of your house. Although beautification is called the CSS, and then once the beautification is done, your house is built. To in order to you start living in that house, you will need some more few more things, like you need electricity, you need plumbing, you need water supply, you need gas connections, you need a couple of more things which will make the more house livable. So it was an analogy. It was to relate in the context of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Whenever we say front end programming, we club these three things together and then we say the front end. So this is the reason why we club HTML, JavaScript, and CSS together, and then we call it a front end development. One has to know all the three bits and pieces so that you can do the front end development. Now coming to just the HTML, what HTML has gone through is two era. Two era in the sense there was a very basic HTML which exists since the internet age. Uh, when the internet came in the existence, the browser came into the existence. People started seeing the content which is not available on their local machine to the browser by connecting to the internet, and the things were hosted somewhere. So in the browser, what they essentially was seeing was the HTML. Browser used to compile the HTML text and then render it in a beautiful format over the browser. So HTML existed, if you talk about the existence, HTML exists since the internet age. But slowly as the time goes by, there had been the variation into it. Some of the semantics has been removed, some of the new components has been, or new semantics has been added to the HTML. So in these days, right now, if we are learning HTML now, in 2020, we can simply bifurcate the HTML into two parts. One which is not HTML5 and one which is HTML5. So two category. One is HTML5 and one is not HTML5. That means HTML2, HTML3, HTML4, anything. Anything which was existing since the beginning. So we saw the HTML growth. What is HTML? HTML gives the structure of a web page.
You will send this slides on mail.
Yes, we'll send you the slides on the mail.
Thank you, sir.
So that's why it's written that the purpose of HTML is to describe the content and provide the structure. Provide the structure of your web page. Like we said that the wall and roof gives the structure to your house. Similarly, I'm talking about the skeleton or your own bone structure. I mean, to develop humankind, the first you need to arrange for is you need some tissues, you need some bones, and then you create a humankind. So these are the analogy of HTML, which means the skeleton of a human body or wall and roof, floors, etc. of a house or a structure of a web page is essentially HTML. So how we define this structure? What is what how in general, if you talk about every house has walls, every house has pillars, every house has roof, at least these are the three basic components you can say. So similarly in terms of the HTML, we have three four basic things. We have the headers, we have the footers, we have the body. So three important things of a web page. In any web page, if I'll go to the browser and if I'll open any web page, you will see this is the header. At the bottom, this is the footer, and this is the main content on which we have some of the links. If you click on that, it will take you to that web page. But this is the basic structure of a HTML page. So we have set our context that HTML gives the structure to the web page. How it gives in terms of the header, body, and footer, left pane, right pane, and etc. So we have the layout. We call that a layout of a web page. In order to do that, some of the keywords which is HTML specific, if you write these words on the if I will write these words on a normal text file, let's say this is a normal text file, I've written these words, nothing, this is a normal text, page doesn't recognize this is a normal head. But when I convert this to, let's say, an HTML, if I say that these are the HTML, it had recognized these keywords. Now if I'll put some angular bracket, you'll notice that it has now given a color to this head. Why?
Sir,
Because
mail this text file also. This text file also, please mail with the slides.
okay, sure. So see, if I will put, if I'm putting the angular bracket in front of any of this keyword, if I'll put the angular bracket here, it will identify that iframe is a HTML keywords. So these are the keywords which an HTML page recognize or HTML or the browser can recognize. So this is the reserved keyword of HTML. Every head means the top of your page. The title means the title you give to your page. Body means the body you keep the text or link or div or whatsoever in image in between of the header and the footer. Iframe is something like if you want to see some other website on your web page, then you can have an iframe tag and you give the link, and that web page or that website can be displayed on your web page. So we have these many reserved keywords for HTML. Every keyword has a meaning. So we'll go some of them which is important. We'll go one by one and see what are those. Like head, we saw that head is the top top of the like if this is a web page, then this is the head. The top of the web page is called head. Now this text what is written can be a title. The complete everything starts with HTML tag. So on top you define that this page is going to be the HTML. So at top we define this tag. Body is just highlighted. What you see is could be a body. A is an anchor to a link. Uh, Anchor to a link means every web page, every page resides on the internet. Uh, has a link, right? Like this is a link. This link, if I want to access or redirect from my web page, I can anchor it on my HTML. Meta tag, image tag, table. If you want to create a table, table row, table definition, bracket, paragraph, script, font, div is another important one. It could be a small section on the web page. So if I need something to be displayed in here on the HTML page, this could be one of the div. So any space to display any specific content on the web page, we can name it as a div. We can give the ID and the class to that div, and can apply our look and feel in there. So if, let's say, if this is one of the div, and let's say I've given it a name class. This div has a class which is named as right hand top corner. Okay, so now right hand top corner, I can apply the CSS, and I can make it, I can give it a some other color. So this becomes the CSS. But let's not carried away with applying the CSS and everything. But the intent over here is just to get familiarized with the keywords which are reserved in the HTML, so that if tomorrow someone asks what is div, you should have an answer. That in order to have a specific control on a specific content over the web page, we define that or enclose it with a div tag, so that we can apply our own JavaScript control or the CSS control, or we can embed a table or image or anything in that div. So it's a specified section on for a specified content on the web page. Then it comes to the link. Center is the center. Span and div is somewhat common. Span also signifies span also means a common section or a piece of section on the web page on which you want to apply your ID. So div can have the ID and the class both, but the span can have just the ID. That's the only difference. Form is like form consists of your input elements. It can be a select, it can be the input text, and it could be the telephone number, etc. So form is we'll see the form today. We'll create a form, and then we'll do a submit. That will give you an idea of input style, strong. So these things, most of this we'll see in the demo of some of the HTML file, what we'll see today. But I would say just get familiarized with these keywords, and so that you know that these are the reserved keywords of HTML. And if you are doing HTML programming, or if not, HTML is not a programming, if you're doing HTML, if you're writing HTML page, using these tags is something which you would be using, nothing more than this. So that's about the HTML. And remember, so far we are talking about HTML, which is not HTML5. This is HTML 1, 2, 3, 4. This is not HTML5. In HTML5, we have dropped most of it, and we have added some new tags that also we'll see. But for now, we are talking about HTML4. Some of the common questions, although not so significant, but to get a grasp on HTML, where the HTML is used for. It's used for displaying every web page on the browser. Then you used to receive some emails from Zomato or Uber or some other companies targeting the audience for the advertisement, etc. So the email template, that is also defined in HTML. Then some help document in the sense when you download some file from the internet. It gives a reference to some of the links, which could be their video, which could be their images, etc. So linking on a text file, like if I'll go here and I'll apply a link, let's say on this, if I need to apply a link, so I can anchor it to the some other website. So I am anchoring it. If I'll do insert, you see that the style of this text had been changed. So this is called the anchoring. So for these are the common uses of HTML. Page structure, we saw that it has header, body, and footer. So now, any questions on this before we move to the?
No, sir.
Perfect then. So let's move to the let's move and see what HTML5 brings. What is new in the HTML5, and how better is the HTML5 from the existing one? So after I think after 5 minutes of this theory session, we'll go to the practical. I mean, we'll see the HTML code, and then we'll realize this in detail. But let's just give a theoretical coverage to 2-3 more points. Like if we talk about HTML4 and HTML5, some of the common differences are like in HTML4, the things were all div. You used to see div classes, div ID, div classes, div ID, everything. If you want to create something left centric, like on this, you see all this. This is the left hand side slider for all the content. So this is called the div ID menu. Then we have couple of things on the in between. So this is the body, and in the body, what we used to create, we can have a form, we can have some text, we can have some write up, anything. So this was the common structure of the HTML4. In HTML5, we have the we call this layout can still be the same. It's just that we have added the new keywords in the HTML keyword list. Like this was the old list. In this list, we have added some more, like article, nav, header, footer is still the same. But in earlier, you were seeing that the what we were doing, we were for the header and footer also, we were creating a div, and we were calling it as a header. So layout wise, this is the identifiable differences. When it comes to when we have a control, some of the major control which you can remember, and from the interview perspective, if someone asks you the common differences between the HTML and the HTML5 are listed in here. So if I'll just make this large, not from the beginning. So now it would be readable to you. Before HTML5, we were starting the page with this syntax: doc type HTML public, W3C, the W3C which you know, the w3.org, and w3.org was hosting the HTML keywords and the data definitions, data tag definition, the DTD, what you are seeing. So you were adhering to this, and you have to write this something which is called, which is not important for a developer, but you have to write it so that it becomes a HTML page. Any text file can become an HTML page, but this was reduced to just a one line. You need to just specify this doc type is at HTML, and you are set. Now meta, you saw in here, I didn't specify what is this meta that time, but now you can see that the meta is something you are saying your web page is following what character set. Character set as in UTF-8, UTF-16, UTF-8 in general are the English letters like A, B, C, A to Z. and numbers 1 to 9, 0 to 9, and some of the special characters. But when you talk about German or Spanish, they have umlaut, double quotes, inverted question marks, some additional characters. Like in Hindi, you have so many special characters, e ki matra, u ki matra, etc. All those are not defined in the UTF-8. So you have to define. I mean, your page is going to be is going to follow what kind of character set? Is it following UTF-8? Is it following UTF-16? Or is it following a global one, which has everything? So that is what the meta char set means. But this is not important difference which you need to remember. What you need to remember is the header, the doc type HTML has been shortened in HTML5. The data tag definition, what we write on top of the HTML5, has been shortened in HTML5. The second major difference is HTML4 was not very supportive in terms of audio and video files. Audio and video files were mostly being added to the web page through Adobe Flash or some additional toolkits. But in HTML5, they have added a default support for audio and video tags. So they have made it the integral part of the HTML5 itself, which was the major change. Then, like you're saying, down below, a line below, that vector graphics was possible with the help of Silverlight, Flash, etc. But HTML5 can support by default. Then the geolocation, like the map supports, the coordinates, longitude, latitude based conversions. Like if you want to see something within the radius of 5 kilometer or 10 kilometer, all those zip codes or the longitude, latitude based aggregations were supported in the HTML5 through geolocation API, and they made it quite sophisticated. Unlike earlier it was all through some external parties like Isri Map or Google Map or Bing Map or some other vendors. HTML in itself was not very supportive for coordinate based graphical use on a web page. So that was so what we saw, the header which defines the data tag definition had been shortened. Audio video supports, geolocation support, the local storage of the cookies is a additional benefit. So we are getting some local storage. We'll see this in detail, but for now you can remember that the HTML5 gives a local caching, a far better improved version of caching technique within the browser with more encryption and more security. With more security features for cookie storage, so that the other parties should not hack your site so easily. So the better cookie support. One thing which is not listed in here and was added in the HTML5. Okay, but yeah, let's finish this first. That HTML5 by default has a cross-browser support. Cross-browser support in the sense sometimes with the Internet Explorer it's not so flexible, but Chrome, Safari, and Firefox are supported by default. Some of the things might not work on Internet Explorer because Internet has seen so many version and variant. I9, I10, I11, Internet Edge, etc., etc. And all these are not web toolkit based browsers. So handling IE is still a cumbersome process, but most of the other browsers like Safari, Chrome, and Firefox, you will have a fail-proof support. Then the major challenge with the HTML was, okay, so we have covered uh, four major differences for you to answer your question during interview. That we have shortened the header tag for HTML in HTML5. Then we have added the audio video support in the HTML5. We have become more supportive in terms of handling audio and video files. We have better support of geolocations. We have the cross-browser support. These are the four major points. Then the fifth point, which I said is not listed here, but is important for you to remember, is the validation. Validation in terms of when you do a submit on the form, most of the tag like name, telephone number, address, age, gender. While doing a registration, we ask for all these informations, and most of it are mandatory. Like your email address should be mandatory. You have to enter your password, confirm your password, telephone number, etc. Whatever fields are mandatory, for those you can add your validation in the HTML itself. You don't need to write any program. In old days, what was happening, that you are writing the validation code in your Java. Like from HTML page, the person has done the submit. Now this submit has reached to your controller, the servlet, and the servlet is doing the validation for whether you have submitted all the required fields info or not. If you have not submitted your required field info, it will say that please submit this. So what was happening, your incorrect data or non-validated data were getting a submit to your server, which is not necessarily required. Rather, you can validate it on the browser itself. So that kind of support is added in HTML5. Data validation, the form, we call it the form validation, has been enhanced in HTML5. That should be your answer. Okay, so we have seen 5 top differences in HTML5, which you can use during your interviews. Rather, in this, I'm trying to depict the same. It was just a picture taken from the internet, where it says that there's a better caching in terms of storage. The offline viewing of some of the web page, the type, web page can have been the flashier and the font size, colors. It has become more sophisticated. Web page these days are better in terms of what we were seeing old days. Like if you open your MDU site and if you open some new sites like Uber or Zomato, they are more sophisticated because they are using the latest things available in the HTML5, and they are better designed since they are using the relevant and the new technologies. Motions, when you are hovering the mouse, you have more controls. You can have the online games embedded in on your page, and you can play with it. Audio video support, we saw 3D technology like the maps. You'd see that these days over the browser itself, you could see the building. You can go inside the building. You can take the stairs, etc. So it's like the 3D image can also be processed over the browser, because the browser has enhanced, the HTML has enhanced, and and you can have a better 3D view on the browser. If you go a few years back.
Yes, sir. Sir, where can I revise this HTML5 concepts? Is there any tutorial or internet site for it, or documentation or internet site
Right.
for
So
HTML5?
right. So for that, I will send you all the reference link from where you can browse. There's 3
Tell
things.
me some links. You tell
Yes.
me some link for HTML5.
Yes. So we'll give you some of the links. We'll send you this document. We'll send you the recording. We'll send you the PPT and
Okay, text file also.
text file and the code as well. So I think
Okay, but reference link for HTML5 and CSS3.
yes, sure. Okay, so now
Internet links for.
yes, internet links as well. But so far, do you have any
Just
questions?
internet links for HTML5 and CSS3.
Sure. So do you have any question now? Do you want to ask anything?
No, no,
No. So
no.
we can just talk about this. I guess we have already covered the HTML4, HTML5. Now I'll just wrap up.
You have any internet reference links for HTML5, CSS3?
Yes,
Uh,
we'll send
I'm
you
saying
that.
any. Okay, where will you send separately in mail ID?
Yes, on your email.
Okay, fine.
So I've already sent uh, some of the documents with you, but I'll send it again after this class.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
okay.
perfect. So now let's talk about a few more things with the HTML5, like what's new thing has been added in HTML5 is what we can see that in terms of the form, the new input types has been defined for the calendar, date, time, local calendar, month, week, number, range, email, URL, telephone number. So email in itself is a input type in the HTML5 because email is a fixed pattern. You have to have two, three things. You have to have the at the rate, you have to have the .com, .in or something. So at the rate and dot something is important. And that's why these days you are saying if there is a email field on the form, you have to enter your email itself. You can't just write something, write your name or anything, and then do a submit. It will ask you to write a proper email address because the validation happens at the form itself. All right, so this was the part of the theory. Now we'll switch over to the practical. We'll see some of the HTML files. So if I'll take you there, I have a kind of 10 HTML files. One by one, we'll see. One by one, we'll keep adding the things, and then we'll see. So I will take 2 minutes break, and we'll be back. Okay.
Okay.
So stay with me. I'll be back in 2 minutes.